Karthik is the founder and CEO of Mastero, where they help enterprise customers accelerate their sales, enablement, and field force development. Karthik has 14 years of experience across investment banking, learning and development, and B2B services. Before Mastero, Karthik was the business head at Inspire One, spreading several new initiatives ranging from developing new strategic alliance to initiating new business lines. Karthik started his career at Jefferies and Company, a leading global investment bank where he was part of the technology merger and acquisition team responsible for buying side and selling side mandate with fast growing tech companies in North America and Europe. Over to you, Karthik sir.
Thank you very much, Aditi, and thank you again, UBS. That was quite an introduction. And hopefully everyone can hear me as well. Just if someone can give an affirmation, that'll be great.
Yes, sir,
Yes,
you're
Karthik, you're audible.
Okay, fantastic. Just thought I'll quickly, share my screen also and just give a quick hi to everybody. That's me in the flesh. It's good to connect with all of you virtually. And in the next roughly 10 minutes, I'd love to talk to you a little bit about some perspectives we have created in helping organizations make learning more effective and engaging using gamification. So with that, I'm going to turn the focus more on my presentation than my camera. And yeah, look forward to hearing from all of you later in the course of the day as well. So thank you again for having me over, and let's get started. So
Yes,
yeah,
Karthik.
just to quickly give you all a heads up, what I thought I could take you through is a few building blocks on how your organizations can use gamification, game-based learning. I'm going to use these terms interchangeably, although in fairness, they are also somewhat different. And just to begin with, the thought process of what we have, we usually like to think of, what is the foundation that you can use on top of which a game-based approach to learning or gamification can really work. And using this funnel-based approach really helps us and our clients to distill things into perspective of what's the reality of learning as it exists today. And I'm sure for all of your organizations, while mobile may not be the only way to learn, it's pretty I think quite obvious that it has also become the predominant approach to not just learning, but many things that we do. So thinking about or having a perspective of what does it mean to be mobile first, and what does it also mean to think about learning experiences from a mobile only point of view, can really help us in making sure that any learning experience, even be it outside of gamification, can be more effective, um, more up to date, and I think to borrow Ravi's point of view, more in line with us being, a little bit more in tune with being a digital maniac. Whittling that down to the next point of view is the concept of micro learning. And in our experience, we've seen the approach that gamification can play in the context of micro learning can be very synergistic. Both can feed off of each other because they have some fundamental approaches that make each other work better than if you were to use them in isolation. So I will talk and just share a couple of perspectives on micro learning and how people should think about micro learning beyond just the fact that it's about bite-sized learning or bite-sized content. And then, yes, getting to the heart of it, would love to talk a little bit about the metrics and the building blocks that try to make gamification more engaging and also more insightful for business leaders. So working backwards, right? If you were to actually think about maybe looking at engagement and effectiveness, I suppose the question all of you might have in your mind is what could be certain metrics, right, that you can look at creating or generating in the context of gamification, and how can that help you to actually showcase learning effectiveness in an even more authentic manner than just the traditional completion adoption rates that most of us are predisposed to using. So just a quick side note here, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about micro-learning in the context of gamification. So we recently, about a month ago, polled a few leading L&D professionals in India and South Asia, and we just wanted to pick their brain on what was it that came to their mind first and foremost when they thought about micro-learning. Not surprisingly, as you can see, most people thought of it as 2 to 5 minutes of learning, bite-sized content. But interestingly, there were a few people that completed the sentence saying it's also about repetition and spaced learning. And funnily enough, these are the two aspects that a lot of times gets missed out in the concept of designing for micro learning experiences. in saying how do you make sure that any experience on microlearning isn't just about consuming content for 2 to 5 minutes at a time, but can it also be done in an effective and an engaging manner such that you can space that experience over a period of time. And also it has an inherent interest factor in it, which leads to higher repetition. So one aspect of microlearning in the context of building gamification experiences is to think of it beyond just the shortening of content and looking at saying how do you space things out and build repetition. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because these are important aspects when we look at then trying to say, using gamification and microlearning, what could be the kind of metrics that we can actually showcase internally when it comes to our learning curriculum, when it comes to certain programs and learning pathways that we design, right? So whether it is about generating a much higher level of engagement, which could be measured not just in terms of screen views, but also in terms of people collaborating on the learning experience more often. It could also be about ensuring that even post completion, there is that inherent interest and value that learners ascribe to the content, making them go back and repeatedly learn and master the skill set of what they have gone through. And even if you look at things like, for example, launching content and going to market faster, or for example, showcasing a higher retention of skills, these are very valuable insights and metrics that we can craft, keeping in mind that gamification and microlearning can be used together, and that you don't also think of microlearning beyond, or you start looking at microlearning rather beyond just the traditional 2 to 5 minutes of content. So let me distill this a little bit more, everybody. So if you look at retention of learning, right? What could that metric look like, and how could you showcase that for any curriculum that you would be designing, keeping gamification in mind? Very simplistically put, this is an example where an organization in financial services crafted a blended learning approach, which had a combination of both pre-learning, classroom-based or virtual learning, followed by post-learning. And as you can see in the x-axis, this intervention spanned for a good 80 to 90 days. Right. What might also be apparent to all of you is that if you were to contrast just the traditional mode of learning, which could, let's say, be either classroom or facilitator led, and not have any learning support preceding or succeeding that, then per a very famous forgetting curve, which all of you know, there is a very high likelihood that only 20% will be retained post, let's say, 30 days. But being able to craft gamification and micro learning both before, alongside, and after the program, what you can see in this particular example for the company is that they were able to, one, baseline the retention of that learning to 62% even before the workshop had even kicked off. And then following that, let's say if you fast forward to day 65, you can see with interspersed spaced learning taking place on specific concepts that were covered, you're actually able to ramp up that learning all the way to 83%, which means using gamification and micro learning as very important support tools in your learning curriculum, you can actually increase learning effectiveness if you measure it by retention by 62%. Right? So this is one data point. If you were to work backwards, you could start crafting and thinking about. The other thing, and I talked about the concept of repetition, that can help us to generate another insight is based on that repetitive mode of learning, can we also segregate our learners into different demographics and really whittle down into what is that one specific concept or micro concept that they are still struggling to understand? And again, the approach to doing this is not just making the learning more insightful for the learners and managers, but then also being able to use that to calibrate performance as you go ahead, either from the manager's point of view or even from the training team's point of view, right? So this kind of a heat map, let's call it, also gives you some insights that can help you to better prepare for, let's say, a coming workshop, or more importantly, help you to further calibrate what is the learning support post this intervention that a team would need. And again, I'd like to just take Ravi's last point on, the fact that if classroom training is reducing, it's not necessarily that it needs to be reduced or even eliminated, but it can most certainly be repurposed if we think about learning effectiveness in this context. So think of, let's say, a sales onboarding program, or even for that matter, a compliance-driven program that your field force has to go through, A lot of the aspects of that module or skill can possibly be learned, and the analysis like the one you're seeing in front of you could then help the training or team or the facilitator better craft and personalize the program that they would be running in the first place. So this is how repetition as a metric can help us get more insights on the skill gaps or competency gaps amongst our workforce. And again, speaking of repetition, another aspect that I feel today is extremely important, and I'm sure all of you agree with me, is just the ability for people to unlearn or relearn something which is new. And to that, the aspect of learning agility, which is being able to ramp up and understand something to its fullest faster than others, is an important metric for us to discern as well. And this is again just a quick example of how one particular learner in an organization repeatedly went through using the concepts of spaced learning and repetition, a game-based assessment, in which he was one able to ramp up with every successive attempt the understanding of what the underlying assessment was covering. And what you can also see is at the end of attempt number 7, which is when he actually was able to at least complete and pass this assessment, he still went back 4 times more to further perfect his score and cement his or her understanding. So this reattempt post completion, as you can see, for attempts 8 to 11, is a very significant storyline that we can build both within the learning community and also with business professionals, in order to say that the person and the group of people being considered have actually been able to ramp up their understanding of the skill, and more importantly, keep going back to learn through this mode of gamification, simply because they feel the utility value of that content is extremely high for their job role. Right. So now that we have some perspective on, working backwards, what could be the metrics that we can show using game-based learning and gamification? How do we really get started, right? What is the thought process and what are the building blocks, if I can call it, that your organizations and you can use to really define and design effective game-based learning experiences? So to think about them, I thought I'll just highlight a couple of perhaps practical constraints that actually help us to innovate around the objective rather than becoming obstacles in what we're trying to do. If you see this dotted line, it's essentially a representation, I'm sure, of what your daily work schedule looks like. And I'm pretty sure it's also in some ways representative of the work schedule, not only of field force, but even people at the CXO level go through. Essentially, it's talking about two things, and that is with people and organizations driving productivity more aggressively than before. The time that we actually have in between anything which is got to do with our work is drastically shrinking. And I, just for sake of clarity, call that our downtime. Right. So in statistical terms, we'll typically have anywhere between 10 to 15 moments of this downtime. And interestingly, contrasting it to, let's say, a decade ago, the time that these downtime moments represent is now anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes, right? And hence, there's a lot more disruption also happening to our workforce in the cause or in the quest of productivity. And as a result, learning is obviously taking a big hit because people perceive that they just don't have the time required to make good investment of their learning requirements. Now, this is actually where the concept of creating game-based learning with micro-learning works very well, because as we all know, one aspect or component of micro-learning is that it is short, bite-sized, and fits within this 2 to 5 minutes of schedule. The other is that because it needs to be spaced out and repeated, every time we have these moments of downtime, they actually act as very good triggers for us to be able to go back and learn something, as long as it's put in a micro-learning context, but also as long as it's made more engaging. And that's where, if I can ask maybe all of you to think back to your Nokia smartphone feature days, you may remember, playing a game on your phone called Snakes, which was actually the first title of a genre called hyper casual gaming. And hyper casual gaming is nothing but games that don't have any storyline associated to them. You're likely to spin them up in your phone when you have 2 to 5 minutes of downtime or when you have time to kill. And as it turns out, within this constraint that I talked about, the way in which hyper casual games and micro learning work can be pretty synergistic. And hence, you can actually design very powerful experiences that get people to, on their own, repeatedly come back and learn the desired skill. So let me try to talk to you about how all that can, come together, and also what are some of the other disciplines that can go into creating an effective game-based experience. So over here, you'll notice that there are four building blocks we've talked about. One of them being psychology, second being game design in the context of hyper-casual games, the third being the psychology of learning, and the fourth being data science. Now, in this particular game design that you see in front of you, hopefully it's apparent that it has certain elements of a roulette table in a casino setting, right? And all of you might, relate to this, but oftentimes when you're assessing the frontline or assessing your workforce, you also want to assess just how confident the workforce is in the answers that they are submitting for a given situation or set of questions. So much like in the context of a casino where you can, let's say, double your bet, you're also able in this case to give the affordance through the game the ability for a learner to double his bet if he or she is more confident about a particular question, right? So this is nothing but a multiple choice question with four answers, but the ability of using game design also not only makes it look more interesting, but also gives the person, much like a casino, the option to take a little bit of calculated risk if he or she is more sure about the answer, or in some cases not take that risk and perhaps get lesser points but lesser downside as well. So in this respect, you're able to see that one, you're giving or using the concept of psychology by getting people to be trained to take calculated risks. The game design itself is being created in a way which takes the person outside of his rote routine and gives them an experience which they're more predisposed to wanting to use, where they want to mentally switch off and yet learn something which is relevant to their role. At the same time, it's to your point as L&D professionals also helping you to improve the confidence of the learner, because every time they are able to double down and win or get the right answer, they're that much more assured that they are actually going in the right path. And from a data science point of view, again, because this is happening in a game-based setting, you can be more assured that people will come back to this assessment repeatedly, not just for the quest of completion, but for the pure joy of learning in this novel, interesting format, which also takes into account real-world dynamics. And on that last point, just to elaborate, of course, a lot of times in the front line, or not even in the front line, in our own roles, we do have to take calculated risks when we take operational decisions. So if we have game designs like these that can, without looking like a traditional simulation, help us mimic those real world challenges, but in the context of a game, it's a win-win situation both for the learner as well as for the learning and development team. And so basically putting all this together, everybody, if we are able to create a learning and gaming loop where both the element of micro-learning as well as the element of gaming can synergistically work together, and where gaming can take support from disciplines like behavioral psychology, data science, and micro-learning principles, what you effectively get is a value proposition both for the learner and their organization. For the learner, the value proposition is that when you have downtime, you will be rest assured to building a learning habit, which can help you to improve your job performance on the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And conversely, for the organization, the more habitual the learner is becoming in this mode of learning, the more data points you're able to capture about him or her, and hence the more insights you're going to be able to generate, not just on learning effectiveness, but also on the effectiveness or linkage to business outcomes. So with that, I'll just quickly, wrap up the three key points that I wanted to talk about, and hopefully, if there's time, would love to get some perspectives from all of you. So the first is, thinking about gamification and game-based learning. How do you work backwards to create the right metrics? We at Mastero use a fairly simple framework known as the 3E framework, where we try to segment metrics either as evolution to learning, learning engagement, or learning effectiveness. And you'll notice one sort of builds onto the other. So you can't think of engagement without evolution or effectiveness without engagement. So it's a it's a pretty linear but simple approach to taking when you're crafting the metrics for your organization. The second is when you think of gamification and designing for game-based learning, having a multidisciplinary approach is extremely important. At the heart of that approach is using the right thought process of microlearning, which, as I showcased to you, is not just about learning in bite-sized content, but more about repetitive delivery and also repeated testing for improving long-term retention. And similarly, using other disciplines like behavioral psychology and science of data can further help us to craft the right approach from an end-to-end perspective when we think of gamification. And then last but not least, on the concept of game-based learning itself, the idea of using hyper-casual games with micro-learning to create 2-minute experiences works well because it fits into our schedule a lot more conveniently and effortlessly. And on the concept of creating a gaming and learning loop, the effectiveness of the loop can be measured in terms of the higher the engagement in the loop, the more the insights you'll be able to generate. So it's a very positive vicious circle that you will be able to create for your organization and get some really good takeaways as a result of that approach. And with that, again, I'd love to field some questions from you and would like to thank you again for joining in. And I hope you find the rest of the conference equally exciting. Thank you very much.
So, audience, if you have any questions, unmute yourself and please ask questions if you have any.
Uh, Hello, Karthik. My name is Aparna Gupta, and I'm from Indigo Airlines. And
Hi, Aparna. How are you?
I very well. And thank you so much for this presentation on gamification. It was very interesting with some very important aspects. Now, I wanted to ask that very often with complex industries like aviation, we have complex topics that we are actually wanting people to learn. In that case, when you say 2 to 5 minutes of literally that bite-sized learning, how are there any tips that you can share in terms of how to chunk it into that small a piece that we can actually kind of build on it so that the entire learning actually doesn't lose we don't lose that entire learning halfway through, because we are giving them a bite-sized piece, then we are giving another bite size, etc., and it could be loads of bite-sized pieces.
Yeah, I think it's a very practical question, Aparna, and thank you for asking it. And aviation as an industry also, I quite admire for very different reasons. But there's it also I would say in aviation can slightly depend on for whom are you thinking about micro learning. So, for example, when you think of pilots, right, and pilot training, micro learning has to be thought through in a very, very different way because the margin of error for them when it comes to getting the right communication from training is extremely high, right? And to your point, in that respect, certain things might not be practical to even build into bite-sized learning instances simply because you kind of need to learn all of it in one go, right? For example, let me just put a situation like how do you operate in a case of a stall, right, or an engine failure. There might be 10 steps or 10 procedures that you need to do, but learning it in one continuity is important because otherwise you can get an idea of the 10 steps, but sometimes you might miss out on the interrelationship between one another. So that being said, it's not that you can't break things down and build them into bite-sized learning. One quick off-the-shelf or off the top of my head answer I can share with you, Aparna, is one to think of it as in terms of the 80-20 principle, or also to think of it from a trailer and a movie point of view, right? So in the 80-20 case, what I'm saying is if you can, for a given training, let's say DGCA compliance, or let's say, what are the ways to operate the 737 MAX, there could be certain instances which you can, highlight as the 20% of content which is going to give you 80% of the impact, or answer at least 80% of the situations that are there, right? And in that case, Aparna, this kind of approach can work well because one, it creates that intrinsic interest to learn about the subject at hand. And then taking that trailer movie concept into consideration, if you find that through micro learning the trailer is interesting, even if you have, let's say, an 80-page document which talks about any of these concepts that I spoke about, you're then forcing the person at Indigo Airlines to be that much more predisposed to wanting to learn because that trailer that they went through, right, if I can call it that, has gotten them not just curious and excited, but has also enabled them to learn about a core aspect of that skill, which is going to be represented in maybe 50 to 80% of the situations. So that's just one very simplistic view that I can share. Happy to talk offline about what else we could do, but I hope that helps give you some perspective.
That
Hi, Karthik. So I got a question for you here. So,
Hi, Dr. Kar.
so Karthik, see, like I just want to know from you, like when we want to inculcate gamification into L&D, interventions and all that. So, how do you decide, like what are the sets of games and all that, whether it is behavioral or technical? So, are there specific attributes based on that we can take a call that this is the game which is befitting the triggers, the elements which we need to see when we are thinking of gamification?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Kar, for asking that. Two points of view here, and I don't think there is a limitation in more points also. At least the way we've thought about it is one way of looking at it effectively is, can you craft and think of game-based designs that can be represented across all the different modes of training or skill sets that you want people to have? Which means, can the same game-based assessment be as effective for, let's say, technical and functional training as it could be for behavioral training, right? So that helps you to at least create a universal context to the game-based approach to learning that you're creating, because then you're not limiting it to any one particular type of context or scenario. Not to say that that option is not correct. That's the other side of the spectrum, where you can also have specific game designs or game-based learning approaches to only fit in a specific scenario or situation that you want to address, right? So I would say that these are sort of the two ends of the spectrum. What we have seen from our example with or work with companies is, from a practical standpoint, it helps to have a more holistic view of game-based learning, in that you're able to use the same design for as many different types of skills, behaviors, and contexts as possible. And in order for that also to work, by the way, what we know is that the ability to create and constantly innovate with new game designs is of paramount importance, because all of these game designs in and of themselves have a fairly short shelf life. So if you're able to constantly innovate out of them, you're then being able to ensure that that curiosity in the learner is paramount and is sort of getting met through your approach.
So, Karthik, don't you think that one most important element would be, understanding the learner-centric game design, means,
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree and endorse that view. At the end of the day, whether it is content or gamification
Yeah.
or the learning experience, we have to think of it from, what is it that the learner is predisposed to liking, and also what is the condition and the work environment of the learner. I think those are extremely valuable points to think about. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
So, thank you so much, Karthik sir, for your presentation and insights.
Thank you very much, Aditi. And thank you, everyone.